Caracas, Venezuela, September 18th, 2025. The political stage in Venezuela once again turned to its long-standing tension with Washington this week. President Nicolás Maduro, speaking from Caracas, announced a large-scale mobilization of the country's armed forces into thousands of local communities. His words came with characteristic defiance and a calculated message aimed both at his people and at the international community. In his televised address, Maduro declared that the Bolivarian National Armed Forces would no longer remain confined to their barracks. Instead, they would take to the streets and villages, physically embedding themselves in Venezuela's everyday life. The move, he stressed, was designed to strengthen ties with citizens and to prepare communities amid what he described as external threats. Maduro stated clearly, "Next Saturday, September 20th, the military barracks will go out to meet the people. The military will go out to meet the people. They will visit the 5,336 community circuits. The Bolivarian National Armed Forces are going out to meet the people, going out to meet the communities." The Venezuelan leader emphasized that this initiative was not symbolic but logistical in scale, with 5,336 community circuits designated for direct visits. Soldiers would march beyond the confines of their garrisons, interacting with residents face to face. Maduro reiterated the scope of the project. On Saturday, September 20th, the districts of the village, the militaries of the community, we visited the 5,336 community circuits. The Bolivarian National Armed Forces go to the community, go to the communities. This repeated phrasing was more than rhetoric. It was a carefully chosen emphasis. By hammering home the number of communities, Maduro sought to project both the reach of the military and the government's intention to root itself directly within the population. The declaration sparked immediate debate across Venezuela's political spectrum. Supporters of Maduro hailed the move as proof that the armed forces remain loyal to the Bolivarian revolution and willing to protect Venezuela's sovereignty at a time of international pressure. For them, the mobilization represented the ideal of the military as an institution of the people rather than merely over the people. Critics, however, viewed it differently. To opposition figures, sending troops into communities risked blurring the line between civilian life and military oversight. They argued that the initiative could be as much about political control as it was about defense, reinforcing the government's presence in every corner of Venezuelan society. Regardless of interpretation, the symbolism was unmistakable. The Venezuelan state was placing its armed men and women directly among the people, not just as protectors, but as participants in daily life. The timing of Maduro's announcement was not accidental. Just days earlier, the United States confirmed a fresh military deployment in the Caribbean, a move that Caracas immediately interpreted as a direct provocation. Maduro wasted no time framing Washington's maneuvers as a security threat, using them to justify his own mobilization. The Venezuelan president described the US presence in the region as a hostile act designed to intimidate his country. His tone suggested that the mobilization of Venezuelan forces into communities was as much about psychological resilience as it was about practical training. To understand the significance of Maduro's message, one must revisit the role of Venezuela's armed forces in recent history. Under Hugo Chavez, the military was rebranded as the Bolivarian National Armed Forces, FANB, tasked not only with defense, but with active participation in social and economic projects. From distributing food during shortages to constructing public housing, soldiers became an extension of the state's developmental agenda. Maduro's order continues this tradition, but with an added layer of urgency. Unlike Chavez's era of high oil prices and relative economic stability, today's Venezuela is plagued by hyperinflation, migration crises, and ongoing sanctions. The armed forces, therefore, are being cast not just as builders of socialism, but as defenders against what Maduro repeatedly calls imperialist aggression. In Caracas, the announcement was met with mixed emotions. Some residents, particularly in working-class neighborhoods, welcomed the idea of soldiers visiting their communities. They saw it as reassurance that the government remained attentive and ready to protect them should external tensions escalate. Others expressed unease. For those wary of the government's increasing militarization of society, the thought of soldiers embedded in daily routines felt invasive. "We need doctors, food and jobs, not more soldiers in our streets," said one Caracas resident who asked not to be named. Yet the government framed the initiative as purely defensive and community-oriented. Officials insisted that the visits would focus on training civilians in areas such as civil protection, emergency response, and self-defense in case of external aggression. The broader implications of Maduro's move reach beyond Venezuela's borders. Latin America has long been a geopolitical chessboard for US influence, and Venezuela has stood as one of Washington's most vocal adversaries. With American warships present in the Caribbean, the optics of Venezuelan soldiers meeting the people carry both symbolic defiance and a warning to foreign powers. Analysts suggest that Maduro's decision is part military drill, part political theatre. By mobilizing soldiers into civilian spaces, the government demonstrates both its readiness to resist external threats and its capacity to extend control internally. International observers remain divided. Some regional allies, such as Cuba and Nicaragua, echoed Maduro's call for unity against US aggression, while others remained silent, wary of being drawn into escalating tensions. At home, the move could also serve a domestic purpose. Maduro's government faces ongoing economic hardship, international sanctions, and challenges to its legitimacy from opposition forces. By deploying the military in a visible, community-based role, he seeks to reinforce loyalty, project strength, and counter narratives of government weakness. For Maduro, the armed forces have always been the bedrock of his political survival. Their loyalty ensures not only his ability to govern, but also his ability to withstand both domestic protests and international isolation. As the September 20th deployment date approaches, the Venezuelan public is left with questions. Will the military presence become a temporary exercise or a lasting feature of community life? How will citizens balance feelings of protection with fears of surveillance? For now, Maduro's message is clear. Venezuela will not be intimidated, and its armed forces will be placed directly at the service of its people, at least in official rhetoric. What remains uncertain is whether this initiative will genuinely strengthen national unity or deepen the fractures within Venezuelan society. Maduro's televised announcement was more than just a scheduling of military drills. It was a carefully crafted performance, equal parts reassurance to supporters, defiance to foreign powers, and a warning to opponents at home. His words: "Next Saturday, September 20th, the military barracks will go out to meet the people. They will visit the 5,336 community circuits. The Bolivarian National Armed Forces are going out to meet the people, going out to meet the communities," will resonate in the coming weeks as soldiers step into neighbourhoods across the country. Whether seen as a show of solidarity or a strategy of control, the reality is that Venezuela is once again leaning heavily on its armed forces to navigate both internal and external challenges.